get this in rolling. Keith, quick intro, my friend.
Okay, thanks for having me here, Jonathan. Good to meet you. Looking forward to it. So Keith Dahl with McDonald Consulting Group. We are the Sandler training entity in the Baltimore area. So focus on everything process and/or skills related to leadership, organizational excellence, sales at all levels, and that communication thing that everybody tends to screw up.
Awesome. Amy.
Hey, I'm Amy Quick. Welcome to 5onFriday. So I'm in limbo right now. I just resigned from my current job. So this is the official Amy's almost starting a new job somewhere else video. So stay tuned for next week and updates on that. But I have been in the sales world for about 15 years. I've worn all sorts of hats: SDR, AE, inside sales, strategic and executive level sales is kind of where my focus has been lately. And it's going to be transitioning to SMB sales. So that should be a fun transition for me. So looking forward to watching Jonathan today and giving him some great advice or horrible advice. I don't know. It could go either way.
Depends how many Modelos you have, right?
Right.
Patrick, what's up, my friend?
Not much, man. Since it's after hours, you can call me Patty Ice, but my Christian name is Patrick Downs, and I'm the sales trainer at PandaDoc. I might consider myself a sales guidance counselor, and I'm really excited, John. I've seen you a couple times, so let's do this.
Awesome. Scott, I don't know if you need an intro.
I'm going to take that as a compliment, I guess. I'm Scott Leese. I run my own sales consulting business as well as a business called Surf and Sales, and wrote a book a while back called Addicted to the Process. And I've got a million other things going on that I won't bore everybody with. But I appreciate you guys all having me on. I saw what you guys were up to and kind of pinged all of you and said, hey, I want to stop in and help sometime. And so I feel fortunate that you guys allow me to crash the party a little bit, and hopefully I can be helpful to you, Jonathan.
Cool. Beautiful. Awesome. All right, John, I'll give a quick, I'm Francois. I work for Encore Business Solutions by day, sell European CRM solutions kind of in the upper mid-market. Worked in the Microsoft ecosystem for about a decade. So that's me. But Jonathan, put on your Jonathan selling hat, and Keith's going to be your customer, and we'll watch. And then at the end, maybe what we'll do is as you start to kind of roll down, we'll just maybe in the comments, we'll see who wants to start to give feedback first as we get to the end there. But Keith's your customer or your prospect, I guess, right?
Cool. Yeah, prospect. And for context, Keith, I usually sell to sales leaders. I'm assuming you can do a pretty good impression of a sales leader of SaaS company.
Been there, done that.
All right, perfect. All right, appreciate you taking some time aside to chat with me, Keith. I understand we have about 30 minutes set aside here, is that right?
Yep, that's what I have on the calendar.
All right, fantastic. And from my understanding, the main purpose of this conversation is to figure out whether or not there's enough alignment between what you guys need and what we offer to really justify us going a little bit more in depth and taking the next step. Is that right? Perfect. All right. Well, typically the way we go about doing this is I'll just talk to you some, as you can imagine, about your business and your processes, right? The way kind of the selling environment your people are in, to figure out what your needs are. I'll talk to you about examples of how other SaaS companies I've worked with have used video email, and in some cases even other industries as well, who have similar goals and similar priorities as you guys. And off of that, we should be able to figure out whether or not it makes sense to schedule the next step. And then at that point, we'll kind of talk about what that next step might look like and who we should get involved at that point. Sound good?
Sure.
Perfect. All right. Well, I did see that you filled out the demo request form yesterday. First question I have for you is just what is the problem you're hoping video will solve for you that really caused you to look into this?
Well, I think one of the things I see a bunch of people putting out some really cool videos, and you know what? It seems like they're getting a lot of interaction, a lot of engagement. We're putting out good content. Marketing people said it's brilliant, but at some point it seems like we're missing out.
Yeah. Okay. So have you guys done much with video yourselves before or no?
I've put a few things out on LinkedIn. We've had the marketing intern who's helped us put some things together to put out onto the LinkedIn page, Facebook page, Instagram. It looks decent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And have you guys ever experimented with videos in your emails before?
Yeah, so we send out an email to our big 5,000 person database. Usually has something embedded in there. Owner says, here's a little 2-minute snippet about what we have going on for the month, usually highlighting, one of the offerings.
Cool. All right. Well, I love that. And why is it you guys put videos in those emails?
Part of it was because some smart people told us that we needed to, and secondly, I know when I open it up, if something looks interesting, it might make me curious to click and open the email, and at the same time, people just get tired of seeing a bunch of words and a bunch of fancy graphics.
See that? Yeah, just think about my own emails, right, that I look through. It seems like words and fancy graphics don't capture attention anymore. Okay. Now, the BombBomb system, I'm not sure how much research you're able to do on our website or not, but you can use the BombBomb system for mass email sending, and that way BombBomb can be a marketing tool for you. But really, the piece that makes BombBomb so different and unique from what you can do on your own is that it's very easy to do simple, personal, in-the-moment, one-to-one video messages. Is that anything you guys have any experience with?
No.
All right. And are you guys interested in using video in both capacities, mass sending and marketing and one-to-one, or are you just focusing on one of those use cases?
Potentially. So that's where I kind of defer to you as the expert.
Yeah, cool. Well, just so you know, Keith, my main role here at BombBomb is working with people like yourself who have an interest in video, who see the power of video, to really figure out exactly what that's going to look like. And some of that will happen on this call. A lot of that will happen in future calls. But that's kind of how you should view me through this process is, taking this vague idea that, gee, we should be using video because some smart people have told us, and really creating a specific plan as to what that looks like. Okay. So first off, I'll just kind of get to know you and your sales process, and your salespeople, and then we'll kind of figure out some ways video could fit into there. Do you guys work exclusively inbound leads? Do you work exclusively, with outbounding, or do you have your people doing a mix of both?
So we do everything. So whether it's outbound calls, fielding the few that we get in through website, through the office, networking, prospecting, LinkedIn. So we are the lead gen, and we are the AE, and we are the one that closes it.
Okay, cool. So a little bit of everything there. Which of those processes, right, the inbound motion or the outbound motion, which do you feel your salespeople are most proficient at right now?
Probably the outbound, because that's something that we can control the volume of. The inbound is what we're hoping the video might go ahead and create. Hey, look, I saw your smiling face and I want to hire you.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. So the outbound side of things, your salespeople do pretty well. And the struggle with inbound is that they're getting inbound leads and you're struggling to convert them, or you're just not getting enough inbound leads?
Not getting enough. I mean, anything that's actually of any quality from an inbound standpoint, we typically close probably 80% of that. Yeah. Some of it's just a bunch of crap, but it's the volume. If we get 5 a month as opposed to 5 a week, that would be good.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, just so you kind of have the right context for this, BombBomb's most significant role will be in converting leads you have. Typically lead generation happens from pay-per-click ads and social media campaigns and things on your website and things that you do externally. BombBomb isn't really involved in that. Where BombBomb will come in is basically your way to more efficiently work the leads you have, your way to create better relationships within the target accounts that you're going after, and ultimately your way to shorten the sales cycle up by kind of removing some of the friction that's involved in a lot of sales. Knowing that, is BombBomb something that you're still interested in, or are you just looking for something to generate more inbound leads?
Well, so obviously more inbound is always better in some cases. So I guess I'm a little confused on, so if I already have something really cool that I've already at least started that process, how are you going to help me speed up what I already do?
Yeah, so basically, the high level benefit of using video, you'll find, is that it allows you to create the kind of quality relationship with a prospect that you would normally only get after you'd met face-to-face. And you can get that type of relationship, that type of connection, almost instantaneously from the first email that you get. Which, getting that attention early on and really having that differentiating edge early on.
I think Jonathan froze on us.
Yeah, he froze up.
Yeah. He was telling us at the onset that his connection where he's working from home is really poor, so he can't work from home a lot, which is.
Well, let's just start up talking about him, and then maybe his ears will ring. And
yeah, I'll put something in the chat for him here.
Yeah.
This is spooky, man. Him being still like that is freaking me out.
I know. It's like he's the window into our souls.
Flash screen for me.
Right.
Is this his way of selling video to us?
Yeah.
You're just such a horrible customer.
Oh, he's reconnecting.
The
Here we
hell,
go.
man.
Patrick told me to behave.
There you
You're
go.
doing a great job.
He's back.
So Francois, remember when I told you I had terrible internet?
Yeah. No
Yeah,
happens
no,
like-
you're cool.
This
And
happens
matter
like
of
every
fact,
meeting.
do you mind if we pause for a second and throw some
Sure.
advice your way a little bit? I think Scott might have something on his mind.
Yeah, go for it.
I get to go first, I guess. All right. So here's feedback for you. Do whatever you want with it, right? To me, like one of the things that you really need to work on is your tone.
Oh, yeah?
You're monotone. So you're just like this. So I get no sense of who you are and what you are passionate about or frustrated by or anything like that. So I find it kind of dull and uninteresting. And when you pitch, I relate it to like baseball. Like I don't care if you have a 100-mile-per-hour fastball. If you throw a 100-mile-per-hour fastball right down the middle every single time, I can time it and I'm eventually going to murder it. So it becomes boring, and I know exactly what's coming. If you want to be interesting, you have to be dynamic. You raise your voice at times, you lower your voice at times, you move your hands around, right? You emote. And I don't get that from you. It feels robotic and flat, right?
Do you think that's part of because you're trying to do it like hyper professional and kind of measured because you're being recorded and or is this kind of your natural way of doing discovery? It's just kind of more the chill. What would you say?
I would like to say it's because I'm nervous and being recorded, but it's probably not a big difference. I'll probably relax a little bit more in a real call setting. But in general, I tend to be much more of a cerebral thinker than an emotional feeler, which means my mind is entirely dedicated on which words I'm going to use and which thoughts I'm going to take. And I pay no attention to like the emotions that I'm putting forward, right?
Yeah, but that is absolutely.
So I don't do much better.
But John, that is absolutely the wrong way to sell to a VP of sales or a VP of marketing, because we are emotional creatures. And I don't think in this computational ROI kind of way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So could I
I
offer
think you're right.
something on that? Could I offer a couple things being in the moment?
Yeah.
So I would say the same thing as Scott. So I try to be as neutral as I possibly could, and I was mirroring your response. So at that point, it's like, okay, is this guy dozing off or is he just boring? And those that know me, I'm not anything but. But I also think two things. Compliment. You did a very good job of bringing back things that I said into it. So that active listening part where, hey, so you're paying attention. You brought very specific words and phrases back into it when it needed to be. So keep doing that. If it was by accident, start doing it on purpose. The other thing too, far too many words. So if I was being my normal self, I would have been like, hey, Jonathan, this is good. Can we get to a point? Is there something coming? What, right? So lots of questions, again, to Scott's point, because it was neutral. I'm like, okay, I'm going through this process, but it's starting to get curious, but I was getting impatient.
Yeah. So you can,
words.
so Jonathan, when you're more of an introverted type of sales rep, because that's going to happen, right? We're not all off the wall crazy. You kind of have to get to your point a little bit faster. So like immediately start, even if you don't have like a very expressive voice or mannerisms, you can kind of use that with the word choices that you use, and you can bring more emotion into it by, painting the picture of like the problems you're solving for your customers right up front. So you kind of dove right into just asking interview questions almost, right? And some people are put off by that. They're like, okay, hold on a second. What is it that you guys do again? And how can you help me? Like, what's the point of this call? Especially at the higher levels. Like, they want you to get to the point right up front. So like practice that and just kind of looking in the mirror and saying, okay, like, how do I describe the pain and the problems that we're going to solve for them right up front? And then dig into that discovery, because now you've set the stage. This is what we will solve for you. Now let's percolate that and talk about it a little bit more. So that would be my advice right up front is you may not be able to change your mannerisms so much, but you can change the delivery and the approach and make it a little bit more shocking, you know? And so from a calm, cool, collected guy to kind of deliver some shocking statements right up front, that's a level of interest that you can bring to it without having to totally change like your, you know, from an introvert to an extrovert. So that would be my suggestions right up front.
Quick question, Jonathan. What's your conversion from discovery to demo? Like, is it always leading to? Is it 50-50? What's that look like today?
I don't really have any numbers that are worth a damn. So part of what you're seeing here is that for my career at BombBomb until 3 months ago, 100% of my job was working inbound leads, which is basically people who already see the value of what we offer, and I just have to take what they already feel and amp it up, right? I compared, they line people up on the edge of a cliff for me, and I just have to push them over the edge. And, you know, it's a bunch of one-call closes, transactional selling, usually the individuals buying fairly inexpensive licenses. It's only been the last few months that they've moved me into a role where I'm working larger companies, long cycle sales, doing outbound selling where people aren't coming to us already understanding why video is so powerful. So I'm actually struggling to articulate why is video so powerful in short, punchy sentences? Because normally people come to me already having their own ideas of why video is so powerful. And basically the only thing I do is I just have them explain to me why video is so important. But when the spotlight's turned on me and I have to explain to them why video is so important, I actually find myself struggling for a short, punchy reason. The other thing too, you saw me drifting into there a little bit, is usually when I do these inbound calls, these inbound coaching sessions, again, they're already interested in video. They want my expertise. They're willing to sit down and let me coach them. And I spend a lot of time digging into the process, and it's very prescriptive. And it's honestly, it feels more like a coaching session than a sale. And then I jump into these discovery calls and some of that bleeds in, right? And I'm struggling figuring out, all right, what do I leave in like an in-depth coaching call with somebody who knows they want to talk to me and are willing to sit down with an hour? And what do I leave there? And what do I bring into my quick discovery call with somebody who doesn't necessarily see the value and is only just a little curious? So I'm definitely floundering.
Go ahead, Patrick, go ahead.
So what is the value of your process that you're using today on the inbound leads in your opinion?
Value of the process or value of the product?
The process that you're using, because you had said that they're lining them up on the cliff and you just gotta like push them over. How do you feel like that's helping you today with like the specific process you're using?
So how is the process I used with inbound helping me close outbound?
No, with the inbound leads you have, you're using a specific process. I'm curious how you view the value of the process you're using versus like you're saying they're just putting them on the cliff and you're pushing them off. How is the process pushing them off?
So the value I offer to inbound leads is a lot of people know that they should be using video. They're hearing from a lot of smart people that should use video, but they really don't know exactly what that's going to look like. So A, it's hard for them to decide to buy, but B, even after they buy, they really don't know what to do with the program now that they have it. So what I'll do is I'll dig into what are your priorities, what are your goals, what are your struggles? Based on what you're telling me, here's a prescription of 3 things you could do with video that would, you know, solve those problems or allow you to see growth in those areas. So they can purchase with more confidence, which is kind of pushing them over the edge, but also once they buy, they'll have more likely to be successful with the product because they have that plan of action laid out for them.
So Jonathan, why should they buy from you?
Well, because if they were to buy from somebody else, they wouldn't have that help and they would kind of be left on their own to figure out
you sure?
how to use it.
Is that it? Just that they wouldn't have that? Do you think the coaching adds value? Is that what I'm asking? Like, you think that that's a big component of it? Like, even after the sale, that's a proportional part of the product that you're selling is the coaching and showing them how to actually create the videos and post them and all of that after the fact? Or are you just talking about like the upfront coaching to kind of get them committed to the purchase process?
So my role is 80% upfront coaching and then little bits of coaching afterward and kind of a dwindling tail. And then, because usually after they sign up, then they have all of our company's resources available to them, all of our company's trainings, company's webinars, company support staff that kind of take over. But a big part of BombBomb's value proposition as a whole company is that there's a lot of video tools out there and you'll just give them your money, you'll get the software and you'll kind of be lost. Where we're the only tool where we actually will give you a roadmap and support and training and guidance, and you'll actually be successful with the product.
Okay. So that right there is those are your value props. So what you want to do is, are you seeing customers that are kind of getting a product and then they're just lost? They don't really know what to do with it. They don't really know how to set it up. they don't have any sort of proper guidance on how to create cool video content. I mean, all of these, I'm sitting here in my head, I'm thinking, what problems is he solving, right? So just keep coming back to that, I think, because your product is premium. Why? Not just because it's a premium product, because it solves some deeper rooted issues for your customers, or your value added compared to this competitor over here. So just like that, I would keep spinning that in your head. But I don't know, Scott, do you have anything else to add? Because I'd like to see maybe you jump into the demo side of it too. And because I'm thinking that discovery is kind of rolled into coaching a little bit too for you. But the demo side of it, I'm sure you get into that portion of it too, right? Like that's your second step, like discovery and then demo.
Well, that will be difficult on this call because the internet speed I have, I can't share on a screen for like 2 minutes
that's cool.
before it freezes and crashes. So we'll probably just have to keep working on discovery. And I can do a short demo, but it won't be much. All right.
Do you want to jump back into the discovery, or you want to keep going with it?
That being said, do you want to go ahead and jump into phase 2, where you and I both are taking what we have? And
I've never done that without knowing more about your situation.
Well, so I mean, what is it? We push pause when your screen froze. We can hit unpause, given what you
and
just
keep
did.
going like you were. Like
Go back and continue. So, and here's the thing. Just and I told Patrick I would behave, but I'm gonna be a little challenging, not pain in the ass, but I'm gonna be a little challenging. I'm gonna ask some questions, not to rattle you, but to make certain that the stuff that Scott said, I want to see more of that personality. But I'm gonna ask some tough questions that I could imagine somebody like myself would be asking you.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Fair enough.
You game?
He's like, oh,
why not?
Keith, okay.
Well, I got nothing to lose at this point. Everything to gain, so why not?
Jonathan, too, we can, if you want, if it makes it easier, we can kind of break it down. And if like Scott has something he wants to throw out there, we'll just kind of raise our hand and then talk to you about it, and maybe even figure out a better way to formulate that last question, or and be ready for that, because like you can completely remanipulate your script moving forward, you know. And so if you're cool with that, we can do that, or we can just let you finish and then we'll do some commentary at the end.
And throw the little hand raise reaction out, and I'll wrap up my thought and then let you cut in. Otherwise, I won't remember what your feedback's about by the time you give it. So it's a good idea.
Right. Awesome.
All right. So last question I remember you asking, Keith, is you kind of asked something about, how will this help me? If it's not going to generate me more leads.
That question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So Jonathan, I need your help a little bit here. I mean, you're sharing some really cool stuff. We know power of video. I was looking in some cases to be able to get stuff that comes inbound. How do we go ahead and people go, oh my gosh, you guys do some great stuff. I'm curious. But what I'm hearing is we've already gotten past that thing with your product or service. So now it's how am I cultivating? How am I getting them through pipeline? How am I getting that next step after the first hello? That's where I'm struggling, trying to figure out what that looks like. And if I need to go back and communicate to my team and say, hey guys, guess what? Spending a crap load of money, but it's going to be awesome for you. Help me understand what that looks like.
So I would say the 3 primary benefits my customers tell me they get from having the service is it is easier to get people's attention, right? Using a video than sending text-based emails. So that initial attention will be easier to get, which, ultimately leads to it, easier to get a meeting. The other big thing is it really helps you differentiate your messaging and your people and your outreach, right? Typically, if it's an inbound lead, checking out your website is not uncommon for them to go check out a competitor's website at the same time and be getting messages from their sales team as well as yours. So the video really helps to give you that competitive edge. But most importantly, I think the power of using the videos is it does help you to build better relationships within the target accounts to the point where your sales
I'm going to interrupt you there for a second, Jonathan. I get all that, but how does that happen? Like, so here's the thing is, so somebody reaches out to me because of my website, radio ad, LinkedIn posts, whatever the case, or they drove by the wrong place. So they've already reached out. We've already had an initial hello, and they've already expressed some kind of interest. I have no idea if they're serious, but I have to have one of these guys reach out. So at that point, how does the video work? I understand what it could do, but how does it actually work? Like, what do I send? What does my prospect receive? That's the part where I'm not clear.
Yeah, certainly. So, you know, a lot of the finer points, you know, of that messaging, we'll kind of work on it as we go. But basically, it would be a very simple personal video message, right? So right inside of, you know, your Gmail or your Outlook account, you can record a quick little video right there on the spot. And let's say it's a new inquiry, right? This could be your first touch with this new inquiry that comes in, is sending a video email and inviting them to schedule a call with you. Or let's say they've already booked a demo with you, right? The first message you send to them could be a video email introducing yourself, setting up expectations for the call, setting up reminders, and that becomes their first experience of you. That way, by the time they get on that Zoom call, that crucial first impression, some of that rapport has already been established from that video. So by the time they hop on Zoom, they already feel like they know you to an extent.
Okay, so that's very helpful. So we'll teach both our team as well as our clients, hey, send an upfront contract. So if I'm sending an email confirming 9 o'clock on Tuesday to do whatever we agreed that we were going to do after our 5-minute phone call, just wanted to put a little video, quick hello, so we know each other. Here's what we're going to do, rough agenda, etc. Look forward to meeting you. And then send. So that's what you're saying makes sense to do for the video with your product, as opposed to just writing it out in some words that may or may not matter.
That's one scenario, right? It's probably 12 different scenarios your people end up using video on, but that's one good example of where a lot of people start, stuff like that. Because ultimately, I think a lot of this comes back to, you know, I've heard from a lot of people in the sales community, a lot of people that I look up to and respect, that especially in software sales like you and I are in, you can't rely too heavily on your features and your product to be the big differentiator and what keeps people's loyalty and what wins people over, right? Because generally anything that you can do, your competition can eventually copy. And ultimately, for a lot of businesses, it becomes the customer experience. And in the world of sales, that's the buying experience, the experience they have with you while they're, you know, in the buying cycle. That becomes one of the big differentiators. I don't know. Have you found that to be true in your world?
Well, there aren't too many people that do exactly what we do. You know, we're a little unique in our space here. But at the same time, anything that gives us that edge, you know, and I do like the personalized touch as opposed to the templated thing that every other company sends out.
Yeah. And, you know, hopefully this isn't too high a level and esoteric to be useful, but one thing that I've found, because as you can imagine, I serve a lot of customers in a huge array of industries, but the common theme for all of them with video is that when you're using video to communicate with people, it creates that sense of proximity that you usually only get when an actual face-to-face meeting, right? So that psychological proximity, that emotional proximity, but you're able to have that even when there's no live meeting. Even when your calendars are so crazy, you can't even line up for a Zoom call. You can still use videos to have that same connection. So really, I would say companies that value video most are the companies that value the connection they have with their customers, the relationship they have with their customers, and the experience they give to their customers. And again, video is just a way to make all that a lot more human, which, you know, as you can imagine, does make it sometimes hard to, pin the exact use case, because again, there's a million different use cases out there for when you would want to be more human.
Okay. So I think Amy's waving because she has something she wants to contribute.
Okay. So, dial it back a ton. Like that proximity line was amazing. Okay. That really, I connected with that. Like I was like, oh, I never really thought about the proximity example. That I would have used towards the beginning of your call when you're describing the problems that you're solving, right? Proximity is a problem, especially for everyone right now. Okay. So make a note of that. That's a problem you solve. Okay. The issue, for a lot of my customers, it's taking them to lunch, it's offering a lunch date. Well, now I can't do that. So how do I bridge that gap? So right there, roll that in as one of the problems you're going to solve at the beginning of your discovery and guide this conversation. Okay. Because I think Kevin or Keith is already sold on the whole idea of video, the concept of it, right? And you said that yourself, these people are coming in fairly warm, and you're just going to try to get them to commit to the purchase. So let's get to the commit. Let's see how you get them to commit to, okay, what's the next step, right? And is that where you feel like you're kind of falling off a little bit? Maybe you're sometimes we oversell, right? We can talk our way out of a deal. I think that might be something where I'd like to see kind of what your close looks like to get Keith to the next step. Anyone else got anything to add there? No, really? Crickets?
Frank's
Does
on.
that, does,
Frank's
go
trying
ahead.
to talk to someone.
Patrick, I'm wondering with your lemon, not your lemon, but taking him to the cliff. I'm thinking lemmings. Taking him to the cliff. Like, what were you trying to get out of? I'm guessing you were kind of going, okay, well, what's working there? Like, tell us what's working there, and how do you kind of reapply that? Is that where you were going with that?
I just wasn't sure why this process is like kicking them off the cliff, because it feels like the coaching that you're doing should be done after the sale.
Yep.
I don't understand why you're doing it pre-sale. Like your
Nope.
job
You're
is,
giving too much value away.
it feels like
That's
you're
your
being the
value.
CSM almost. Yeah, so that's why I asked. That's the only reason I asked.
And I always like picking on Patrick because, you know, he you know, if they're coming in, I like this idea of a cliffhanger of, hey Keith, we haven't, like, thanks for jumping on the call, but you know, I want to tell you right away about another customer we have like you, and this is the like immediate benefit they got from working with our tool. Is this a problem you have? Let me tell you about how we solved it. Like, kind of really reel them in right out of the gate. And it was a little like right out of the gate. I mean, I know we're going back a bit, but it was like, you know, you filled out the form and then, so, you know, it was like a little bit too copacetic. Like, you know, there was nothing really like pulling me in.
Scott, you unmuted yourself. I see. You're chomping at the bit there.
I don't want to derail everything. I, as of right now, still have no idea what Keith's pain is at all. And we've been on this call for God knows how long, right? And so that's the very first thing in my mind that we would all as salespeople need to find out. What is this dude's problem, right? And so
that's Scott.
What's that?
We don't have enough time for that on this call.
not that kind of problem as the prospect. And so I don't think there's been enough conversation about what is hurting him, what is harming him right now, what is he losing right now, where is he bleeding, where is he struggling. I don't know any of that stuff right now.
Yep.
All I've heard is conversation and dialogue about, why did you come check us out? What was interesting? And this is what video is all about, right? And one of the problems that I've always had with inbound reps is they just automatically assume, and I heard you say that, they automatically assume the inbound knows what the fuck is wrong with their business and knows why it's important to solve. I don't operate from that premise. I operate from the premise of, oh, cool, this is one less random person I have to cold call, but I have to pitch them the exact same way, which I would have started with trying to ask Keith, saw you came by the site, like, tell me a little bit about what your business, what's going on? What's the problem? Why are you really here? I want to know what is killing him, right? And I just don't think that we've gotten anywhere so far, and so that's one of the reasons that Amy saw me chomping at the bit.
Yeah, so let's reverse engineer it with you, Jonathan. So one of the things that works really well, like, okay, I sell software too, okay? And so when I go into a call, I mean, there's like a little bit of, you know, back and forth, greetings, you know, hey, how's the weather? Stuff that you shouldn't do. But then I literally get right to the point. So I either, one, you're going to come in already maybe having some intel on them, right? Like, I'm assuming you guys have a CRM and maybe some of their marketing scores and stuff has been notated, like what they've been looking at or viewing or attending or some of that stuff. Is there some of that intel for you already?
Yeah.
So I take that and I try to carve out and figure out, okay, why are they looking at these specific things? Is this an indication of a problem that they're experiencing, or are they just curious and maybe looking for some free education so they can go make their own videos without me? Okay. So I quantify all of that. And then when I get them on the call, especially with you, I think it's okay to go right into it and to say, you know, what was the reason for taking this call today? You know, and if you feel some resistance there, that's when, like, Patrick does a really great job of this with his calls, where he will spell it out. Like, we usually work with customers that are experiencing X, Y, and Z pains. I guess you're going to say that, you know, that's not a problem for you guys. Or you could say, you know, maybe this is an assumption, but you coming on this call, you know, is that indicative that you have some of those same issues going on? Or out of these three, which one is your main concern? You know, so you can really upfront take the problems that you know you already solved for your customers. And if you don't, dive through your CRM and you'll find them in about 5 minutes. And then you can bullet point them out, have just a sheet of paper with all the freaking pains in the world that you solve for your customers. And you can just pick and choose, like based on their activity and what they've viewed so far, and maybe some of the intel that we have from an introductory call or a cold call that happened before you spoke to them. You kind of know already, like it's going to be probably this, this, and this. But I would say right from the very beginning, you got to get into it with them. And like Scott said, you got to figure out why they took this call, and then explain to them how you can help them so you can get them to that next step effectively. Like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, you should be booking a next step or getting some sort of commitment. Does that make sense?
There's a few things that I'd like your views on. There's two things that are very closely related. In this particular call, where things got derailed is when Keith had the wrong idea of what BombBomb did, and I had to kind of clarify what BombBomb did, and very quickly that just kept going on the what BombBomb did conversation. And like Scott said, here we are 20 minutes in, and we actually haven't talked about his problems yet. And that'll happen fairly often, where I'll try to ask questions, but the customer doesn't even have the context of what the hell BombBomb even is to know what context I'm asking those questions in. So they want, and in some cases it might benefit me to give them at least a little context of what we are, what we do, so that these questions start making a little more sense. But of course, it's a matter of how you give that context without it being, pulled off down this ramp of talking about my product instead of them, which I think is closely related to a second thing. Is I continually, in every sales call, particularly in the outbound sales call, there seems to be this tension on these calls where the prospect doesn't really want to talk about themselves, their business, their pains, their process. They just want me to tell them what the product does, right? And I am not all that interested in talking about my product and what it does yet. I want to talk about them and their business and their pain and where I can help. And it seems like we can't both get our way, and there's this back and forth.
You're in an old school gunfight, dude. That's what it is.
That's what it feels like. So, yeah. I mean, is that true, or is there a better way to look at it and do it? Because that's what it always feels like. Like one of us has to get our way over the other. We either talk about them or we talk about my product.
Yeah. So who's good? So who should win this gunfight?
I know I can't sell my product if I don't learn about them. So I want to win this gunfight.
Okay.
But it's the same.
Sit with that mentality for the next fucking 45 years of your selling career, right there. And you'll be in better position than you are right now, because it doesn't feel like you believe that. It feels like you're in this customer servicing Nordstrom's kind of mode where the customer is always right, and you're skewing that direction whether you realize it or not. Whereas I would rather somebody hang up on me than run my sales process at their speed. This game is played on my home turf, or I don't play the game. That's my mentality. And that's how I teach it. And so I'd love for you to work on that mindset, right? It will change the way you look at and approach some of this dialogue.
So is obviously you get better at this, the tactile part of it with time, but Scott, would you say it's to be expected that I might get some irritated tones of voice when I'm forcing people to play my game on my terms when they would much rather?
100% of every day. Yes, I get irritated tones. I've been doing this for God knows how long. Everybody on this call gets irritated tones and from prospects, or people hang up on us or tell us no, whatever. Yes, 100%. But Patrick just an hour ago. Yeah, but if I just give them what they want the whole time, I'm going to sell nothing. You already said that yourself. So
you give away all the value.
Yeah,
for free.
I just have to not get emotionally affected by the ones that go squirrely on me, right? Yes, it's completely normal. Yeah.
So Jonathan, I put this into the private chat, but since you probably didn't see it because you're paying attention to all the wisdom, I'm going to ask you here because I didn't want to put you on the spot. Would you be willing to take 4.5 minutes, reverse the roles? You be the prospect, I be you?
Sure. Like I said, everything to gain, nothing to lose.
Oh, Sandler's going down into his house.
So
I will judge you harshly, Keith. Now you're in the hot seat.
We're just going to coach Keith.
All right, so Francois, can you mute Amy? There you go, mute Amy, thanks. So, so Jonathan, I appreciate you making the time for us to take this 10-minute call. Quite frankly, just to find out what it was about what you saw on our website that piqued your curiosity. And obviously I'm really curious at this point, because when I'm talking to that VP of sales, I know in my head there's probably 2 or 3 things that were going through their head that prompted them, because they knew somebody was going to call them. They knew it was going to be this. So with regards to your sales team, when they are sending out those first emails, the follow-up emails, the set the discovery meeting, the set the stuff, what are the 2 or 3 things that are happening that you like or happening that you don't like where you think video could help?
I mean, I think for us, a big part of it is we send out video emails. We send out emails, and they don't seem to get responded to very well. We're just looking for like a unique approach, right? Because, you know, we know there's a lot of crap in our inbox. We're reaching out to them as well. So we're trying to find a way to really have that unique edge, so we can get more engagement on the emails we send.
Okay. So assuming a fact that they actually reach out to you because they legitimately are curious about something, and assuming that your content is spot on, it's just getting caught in the clutter. Whereas if they see something that has a video, you're hoping that'll pique their curiosity and they'll want to click on your email as opposed to letting it just go on by the wayside. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the idea.
Okay, so let's imagine for a moment that there's this awesome video, you put things in place, they receive it. What in particular do you want them to see in 90 seconds, maybe 120 seconds to make them say, yeah, I understand what's going to happen. I want to agree to take this next step with the person. I'm not going to blow them off.
I guess I'm not sure exactly what that'll look like. And maybe that's, you know, some of the questions I have for you. I've heard, you know, people mentioning on LinkedIn that they're using video in their prospecting and getting better engagement rates. So it kind of piqued my interest. But as far as what we would actually say in the videos, I don't think I've quite thought that part out yet. Maybe just, you know, maybe a quick overview of the ways we can help and what we can offer, and then a call to action to schedule a meeting. Is what I'm thinking of right now.
So let's go on that one. So at some point, initial 5-minute call to be able to say, hey, look, why don't we go ahead and set up a time on the calendars, talk through why you clicked on the website. But then there's that email confirming it, introducing what your upfront contract, what the agenda is going to be, kind of setting those expectations, letting them see your smiling face. You're not a stranger. Is that something where you're like, wow, these people are giving me that personal touch? Or is this somewhere further down the pipeline where you had an initial call and you think they've gone in ghost mode and you're trying to find a nice way to go ahead and say, hey, it's me. Do you remember me? Like, how do you see yourself or your team using it?
I was more picturing the first as, you know, part of the initial process of setting it. Although as you mentioned, I wouldn't be against, you know, using it as a follow-up as well.
Okay.
Jonathan,
So,
you are an amazing customer.
I know, right? So
He's being easy on you.
So
okay.
He didn't know better.
Can I ask a question? Like, being totally brutal here. How do you ask someone to close on a next step, Jonathan? What's your phrasing that you use? Because I have a feeling that if you get to the point right at the beginning, expand on your pain, put it out there, really lead them and guide the call, right? And don't let them just get all the value and suck you dry, because that's what they're going to do, right? They do it to me too. If you get to that point and you get through that point, you know what their pains are, you know you can help them with their pain, you know you've explained to them that you can help them solve their problems. How do you close on that call? What's the typical next step?
So generally it's the fact of, okay, based on what we've talked about today and, you know, using it this way, and that way, to you, does it seem like this is something that's worth investing a little more time and energy in? Should we schedule a next step? And then they say, yes. And I say, okay, you know, typically the next step is a 45-minute meeting where we take a little bit more in-depth of a look. Who should be involved in that call? And then I try to get, you know, a few other stakeholders involved at that point.
Okay. So don't say typically, just say, this is our process. Okay. It typically kind of gives a little bit of, it sounds like you have a lack of confidence there in your process. So I never say typically, I just say, our usual process is this, let's do this. And then I ask them for permission, like, is that okay? Or how does that sound to you? Or, you know, something along those lines. So when you're getting to that point where you've discovered their pain, you have to kind of round it out and say, okay, well, we've identified your problem. I can solve it. I can solve that problem. This is how I can solve it. Let's circle back for a call. Or, I mean, I'm assuming like they have to pay. Is it like a paid subscription, or, and do they usually give you a credit card on that at that point, or how does that work?
I mean, usually what'll happen is that second call will happen a little bit more in depth. It might involve a couple leaders, maybe a couple end users. We'll go into details of how it integrates with their software and the details of, use cases for them. And then in rare instances, they're ready to sign up right away, but usually it's like, okay, I'll let you guys talk amongst your team, get a final head count, and then we can talk in 3 days and sign up whatever number of users you think you want.
Okay, so on this call, at the end, spell that process out for them really succinctly, okay? Because that gives them the confidence that you know what the hell you're doing. You've done this a million times, and you're going to sell this solution to them, and they're going to freaking love it, okay? So really get to that point where you wrap up discovery really quickly, spell everything out, and then do your close, okay? Because I think that maybe it sounds like you get into coaching mode like we talked about, and you feel like you've got to give them a lot of coaching and upfront value, but that's part of what you guys offer, right? That's part of the value in doing business with you, is learning all these cool tips and tricks and all of that. And if you give that away, like Scott was saying, if you talk too much and you give that all away, they're just going to take the advice that they got from you on that call and say, thanks, Jonathan, have a great day. Yeah, maybe we'll circle back for another call, or send me some more information, or yeah, sure, yeah, let's I'll email you with my schedule, or whatever the kind of blow-offs are, and then they're going to take that information and they're going to run. So that, and I don't know if you're experiencing that. That's just my assumption, and I could be dead wrong. So if I am, tell me. But that's the general perception I have in this, is that you just need to the product, and the values that you can provide your customers. I could tell that right up front, because you want to coach people, you want to help them. So help them more effectively by being a little bit more upfront and confident with what you want to offer, and getting to the next step, right? Does that make sense? I mean, how does that make you feel?
So I think most of that's good. It's probably very minor, but I would push back a little bit on being quite so assertive and directive with the next steps, because I don't know their organization. I don't know their timelines. I don't know for a fact what the next best step would be. And I feel like if I force my model on them, it might cause them just to no-show, or I would almost rather them co-create the path with me and feel like they're part of this journey that's laid out. So I prime the pump by suggesting what it could look like. And 9 times out of 10, they say, sure, that sounds great. But I want to give them that opportunity for those 10% that are a little atypical to say, well, no, not that. That wouldn't really work for us, because for us, this works a little better. And then following along their
Don't worry
process.
about the 10%. If they want your product, they'll buy it in the long run. Don't worry about them.
So Jonathan, instead of worrying about the 10% and having some of these things happen, who gives a crap about the 10%? So quick pause back in. If I went where I was about to go to what Amy said, was going to say, okay, so Jonathan, imagine how many people do you have on your sales team? Back in role play real quick. How many
We
people
got 10.
That would be using this?
We got 10.
You have 10 people. So you said your interest was to go ahead and be able to use this from the hello to the first meeting, discovery, whatever that is, to make sure they can personalize it and set up the stage. How many of those emails are each of those 10 people sending every single week?
I'd say each person sending 3 a day, 15 a week.
15 a week, so that's 150. Are you happy with that number, or do you think at this point that number should be increased more than the 150 a week for the team?
I mean, I think the number of emails is fine. We just want them to be more impactful.
Okay, so you're talking 600 emails roughly going out every single month. What would be your expectation in an ideal world to make certain that, hey, there's 600 emails going out. I made an investment in this product, this amazing video. We know the content's great. What's your expectation with regards to number of meetings, conversations, conversion? What's your expectation there?
I mean, I would expect that if we're using videos before the meetings, our show rate would be better. And ideally, our close rate would be better as well, to justify the cost of buying the video program.
Okay, and so let's imagine for a moment that I ask some clarification questions, because I'm gonna say, because Jonathan, the reason I'm glad you shared that with me, because here's the thing. Our next step at this point, if it makes sense to do so, would be to go through a demo. Like, first of all, I'm gonna send you a follow-up meeting using exactly what your team would be using. We'll set up a demo to go through all the little logistics. But before we turn around at the end of the demo and agree we're going to do this and I take a credit card, I just need to have the information now to know whether or not your team's going to use it and whether you're going to get enough money as a return to even warrant us taking a next step. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, did that seem assertive? Did that seem aggressive?
Assertive.
Okay. So there's a difference between being aggressive and being assertive. You're guiding it through. This person's turning around, but if they turn around and said, we're only sending, 10 a week, well, hang up, to Scott's point, because at that point there's not enough. It doesn't matter what your subscription is. But if he says, I got 600 a month going across with 10 people, that's where your conversion rates, your open rates, your no-show rates, so there's where you need to be able to, Scott's earlier point, to go ahead and get the pain. You know what questions to be able to ask. You know what stuff's happening or not happening. So when you're able to, particularly again with someone who's a sales leader, help them get through and analyze. They'll show you the details, and then it makes it a lot easier to say, if we're going to make the investment, if I'm going to give you the demo, if I'm going to show you how to do what it is that you want to do, I need to have this information, and then they will naturally take the next step.
So the only comment I have is, I think we've given you a lot of good pointers around the table here in terms of getting to the point right away. I don't have anything to add there. I guess I'm curious, in the last kind of 5 minutes, Jonathan, out of all this feedback, do you have any questions around how do I take some of this and implement it, right? While we're here to give you, I think Keith's done a good job reverse engineering it here. Hopefully that's helpful. And by the way, you can reach out to at least most of us down the road too, right? You might want to throw some videos at us and we can help you refine it. But is there anything you're kind of going, I'm still not sure how that's going to work?
I think I need to just get a little bit clearer again on exactly, what the value proposition is for and how to express it, right? Because like I said, a lot of the value I see in video isn't obvious in a one sentence. Oh yeah, it's almost one of those things you have to experience it to go, oh shoot.
No, please don't accept that as your reality. Please don't accept that as your reality, okay? Our job as salespeople, and candidly, whoever are your bosses, they should have already fucking solved this for you. Our job is to take something super complicated and shrink it to a 10 to 30 second soundbite that my 10-year-old and my 95-year-old grandmother could both somehow understand. So just push back on that. It's totally fine and acceptable for you to admit and say right now, you're struggling with how to deliver the value prop because it feels so nuanced and there's so much, right? That's not the problem. The problem that I'm finding with you right now is that you're accepting that as your reality. And that doesn't have to be reality. We could all sit here for the next 30 minutes and help you shrink this thing down into multiple sound bites, let alone one sound bite. That's my belief that in myself and in the others on this particular call. And I need you to get to the place where you understand that and believe that. And that's what you should be asking people for help about more than anything else. That's my number one takeaway and driver right now. What you need to work on, you need to work on that.
Great.
Another thing, I don't know if you have any advice on this, but what would be a good opening question or opening couple of questions that puts the conversation on the right trajectory? With an inbound lead, typically the opening question is, well, why are you looking at a video? What problem are you trying to solve with video? On an outbound lead, I really have no idea what the opening question is.
I'm gonna not punt it over to Patrick, but Amy already mentioned this. I love these presumptive questions he takes where you already know the answer and it's probably a problem for the customer. A lot of our customers have this problem.
So
I would imagine
descriptive in nature then.
Exactly, right? So, I don't know, Patrick, what's your spin on one of these?
My inbound reps kind of take the approach that Scott was talking about. It's why are you even here, man? What are you doing here? Because you're a VP of sales, you're fucking busy. I don't get why you're sitting down with me. Sometimes you can even go a little negative on it if they're not giving you what you need. Or you can just steal Kevin Dorsey's thing. It's not his, but he talks about it all the time. It's we have one of two buckets, right? Are you in this one or are you in this one? And option close them on that.
So that's inbound. What's the outbound equivalent?
You can do that bucket thing with outbound as well.
Okay.
That's transferable. But I have a question for you real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked this on the first 5onFriday we did. What is the terrible thing that happens to your prospect the second before they submit the demo request form?
they have a moment of anxiety of not knowing whether or not it's going to be worth their time to meet with me or not?
No, the problem that happened in their business
Oh, the problem having their business.
that caused them to reach out to you.
They're worried they're going to get fired. I bought this shit. I pushed send on inbounds because I'm thinking I better solve my fucking sales problem or my ass is going to get fired.
They're not
So
converting something, you know.
Scott,
their emails aren't working. Something's not working.
You've bought video software, Scott?
I have, yeah, Drift.
Okay. Well, Jesus Christ. Way to bury the lead, man. Let's talk about that.
And nobody asked.
Talk about that with Jonathan. Well, why were you scared of being fired?
Everybody who's in a sales leadership position is afraid to be fired. You know, the average tenure is 15 to 18 months. And we're the first person to go if there's any kind of problem. And if you're in sales management or account executive, you feel the same thing. So yeah, like my problem might've been, I need to engage with my prospects better and in a more personal way. But that's not the fear that went through my head. The fear that went through my head before I pushed send on the inbound is I'm going to get fired if I don't improve our sales. What's a sales problem that I have? I'm not engaging my prospects personally enough. So our conversion rate from outreach to conversation and opportunity is not high enough, right? So here's one particular way that I think can help us solve that particular problem. I think we can use Drift videos and whatnot, right, to solve this particular problem. And so I want to hear what they have to say, right? So they get on the phone. They get on the phone with me, and they're like, "So what's going on? Talk to me. Like, what's going on in your business right now?" And I'm like, "Well, we're doing pretty good, all things considered, but you know, engagement's a little bit down. We're in this old, antiquated industry. You know, people have been called to death and probably emailed to death. They're not on LinkedIn. Like, I'm trying to figure out a way to, you know, cut through the noise." Right? So, and then they ask me more questions like, "What do you think it's costing you, this pain?" Right? What is you can break it down to like what each prospect is worth if you really want to get like super granular. So you get into these kind of, Rob Jepson says dollarize. I don't know if you've heard him talk before, but like they dollarized the situation. They converted my pain into some type of monetary, you know, number, right? It's like I already know this a little bit, but when I hear you speak it out loud, $100,000 problem coming from Patrick's mouth to my ears sounds worse than me thinking to myself, I got $100,000 problem right here. Right?
Now, when I've tried doing stuff like that before, what is it costing you? The answer I always get is, "Oh, I don't know." Or when I ask, "Well, what you know?"
So stop. Why do you accept that as why is that an acceptable fucking answer? It's not an acceptable answer.
Because they don't have any way of knowing for sure.
Bullshit. I don't even need them to know. I don't even need them to know for sure. I need them to be able to articulate a hypothetical, because I will use that hypothetical for the duration of our sales cycle.
If it's a VP or any sort of sales leader or anything like that, Jonathan, they know the cost of customer acquisition. I guarantee you, they know what it costs.
They're saying, "Oh, I don't know," you know, because they don't want to deal with it. They don't want to deal with it. See, so you have to push back and be like, "Well, you know, I know you. Like, play with me here. Like, let's take a guess, right? Like, if your conversions are what right now, 15, 20%, what are they? Well, you know, they're somewhere around 17%. All right, okay, and so 17% right now. What are you trying to get them to be? What do they need to be in order for you guys to typically succeed? Well, you know, probably closer to 23, 25%. Okay, so what is your average deal? So I just basically do the math with them and for them. And before I know it, I'm able to say, so, you know, we might not know for sure, but this is like a, you know, $100,000 kind of problem here, right? Does that seem fair? You with me? And they're like, yeah, you know, that sounds about right. If I just accepted their initial pushback, I never would have got that information.
Yeah.
All right. So my big takeaway from this is play the game on my terms, even if it ruffles their feathers a bit.
Right. You've got to be willing to ruffle feathers. If you're going to succeed in sales, you have to ruffle feathers, because there are a lot of companies too, even if they come to you on an inbound lead, they're still change resistant. Okay, there's a lot of work and risk and change. Okay, so you have to sell them on risk aversion, right? So what's the cost of them not doing business with you? What's the cost of them not making this purchase, right? That's your job. And sometimes that's going to be a little challenging. It's going to be a little in your face, and that's okay. I think for you, like one of the big takeaways will be like really go solidify that value prop, right? If you can come up with like a great, in your mind, what's the value that you can do? And then another thing that I do is I sit there and bullet point out every single problem I solve. And then I break it down even further into like what I call hard and soft costs. Okay. So what's the hard and soft cost of this return on investment that I'm going to provide my customer? Then I figure out how to articulate that to a sales leader or a VP or an executive, right? Because they just care about the high level shit. What problems are you solving for them so they don't lose their job, right? They want that next promotion. They don't want to lose their job, okay? And so all the way through your sales process, you've got to change how you're articulating these pains and reassess based on the level that you're working up to get that final close. So, I mean, I agree with Scott, like, don't be afraid to be confident in your product because you're selling your product. You're selling your solution. You're selling for your company. You got to represent that. And I think the more you represent it, bye, Scott.
Bye, Scott.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Scott.
Seriously, using your face as a thumbnail.
Yeah.
We're okay with that.
But I think the more comfortable you get with not feeling like you have to protect the customer, right? The better you'll get, because I get a sense that you know exactly the pains that you can solve for your customers, because like you're trying to get them to admit it on the call kind of through just the series of questions. Whereas if you just get like what Patrick said and just get straight out with it, like these are the problems that we solve, like, which bucket are you in? Or, out of these problems, if you could make one go away today, which one would it be? I think you're going to find a lot more success in kind of moving through those calls faster and getting to the next step. So my goal is anytime I'm on a discovery call, like it's a 30-minute discovery call, right? My goal is to wrap it in 15. I'm like, get to, like friendly banter up front, some relation, development there, and then I get right in it. Prime example of that, I had a call with an executive where he finally agreed after 6 months to a call. And we've been talking with this team for a long time, right? Just going back and forth, feature selling and all this crap. And finally, I just got straight with them. And I'm like, look, we know we can help you. You know we can help you. When are we going to do business? Then he was like, yeah, you're right. Let's do this. Okay, cool. 15 minutes. Like on-site demo, here, we're moving. So that would be my advice for you, is like go back and really drill in on those pains and those problems you're solving and get really, really good with how do you describe those, and maybe even pick out your top 3, or even better, use it in your content marketing, right? Like ask your current customers, hey, are you still experiencing these? Or use it in your LinkedIn content, put posts out there, like what are the top 3 issues that you're seeing, out of these. I mean, I can't wait until they do those polls, like those LinkedIn polls, because those are going to be sick, because you're going to get instant feedback from people, and there's your problems you solve, and then your value prop comes from there. So
do you think, just based on the convo today, I mean, obviously we're throwing a lot at you, and hopefully you're taking it not personally, but just as constructive feedback, that, do you think you'd feel comfortable even next week, even with one of us, to go through kind of that scenario where you kind of said, okay, well, let's walk through like what's the cost of the lost revenue from not getting the responses, right? Like kind of breaking that down. And do you feel, or do you still feel like that's a little bit, you're not comfortable going down that path?
I mean, I've attempted that before. The thing I need to get better at is when they give me the pushback of, I don't know, like how to respond and say, well, let's sit here and figure this out a bit together, and not moving on.
But I think to Amy's point, I think you could probably dig up some information with some of your customers and go, okay, cool. Like, you don't know, let me give you some examples. And then do you think that's like kind of like what yours is? No, that's not one. All right, let me give you another example. Like, just wear them down. Like, because everybody thinks they're unique. They're probably not. We all kind of have similar problems.
And if they won't bite, and if they won't get into the call and actually start talking to you, then you got to start to question what their motivation is for being on the call to begin with. Are they just trying to get free education? Are they trying to pick your brain because you're an expert and they want to walk away and use what you've shared with them to create their own video content and their own sequences with all these video drops and all of that? I mean, that people do that. You know, I mean, they come on technical calls all the time and will sit through an hour-long demo just to see like how this chart is created so they can go back and try to duplicate it. So your job too is to kind of push them a little bit to see how motivated are they in this process. And if they're not motivated to even like work with you on trying to understand like what's the cost of customer acquisition. I mean, any sales leader should know that. You know, they should know right down to the penny, like this is how much it costs to acquire a customer. And then when you, yeah,
sorry,
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think you can set the stage at the call too, right? Like right out of the gate, like I know you want to learn about more of the product. I'm super happy to give you a bunch of information, but I want to take you through kind of this, and you know, maybe question and answer is something they don't want to hear. So I want to take you kind of through this hypothetical situation, and as we go through that, that'll help me really help me give you all the information you need. So kind of like lay that groundwork that you're going to tell them a ton about it, but you need to walk them through this to make sure it's going to actually be valuable to them. So, you know, I want to tell you more about the product. I'm going to take you through the scenario to make sure this is a good fit. So you've already set that expectation to say, listen, if we get through these questions or you can't answer any of this, maybe it's not a good fit. And then I haven't wasted your time. You haven't wasted mine in a demo down the road. Right. So I don't think that's unfair. Like you want to set that expectation that you want to make sure this is useful to them. You know, it's all about, it's valuable to them. And again, how you reframe it. So I think, you know, between the four of us, I mean, you can bounce some of these off of us again, and you can, you know, keep sharpening your sword. Like this is take one, but you know, we can do this again with you, so that, you know, you feel more comfortable doing it.
I did like at the beginning of your call too, Jonathan, how you kind of framed the expectation for the call. I would maybe go even one step further on, especially on those inbound ones, because they've accepted it, right? Where you were like, you know, on these calls, we're going to kind of do this, this, and this. That instills confidence in the person on the other end of the call. They kind of know what the expectations are. And you can take that even further, is to say, you know, on this call, my job today is really to figure out if we can solve a problem for you. You know, and the expectation is at the end of the call, there will be some next steps that we can discuss that are relevant. And I'm just asking you that if you feel like we can't help you, that you tell me no. Are you comfortable doing that? And the same applies with, if I don't think that we can help you or there's a problem that we can solve for you, I'll tell you no. Are you okay with that? And just really frame it right, because the big thing with sales is just, you want them to be comfortable with you, but you also want them to be confident in you. And I feel like you kind of err on the side of wanting to coach and wanting to kind of be like the mentor side, which is awesome, right? But I feel like that value is gonna come in a little bit more when you're kind of getting into the ramp up to, you know, onboarding them and all of that, and that kind of mentoring, coaching attitude is gonna come into play, and they're gonna be like blown away, like, oh, we picked the right vendor, you know. But up front, you want to be a little bit more constructive and I can never say this word, judicious with your time, right? Because time is money. It's your time.
Totally.
So,
speaking of time, I don't know if everybody has to jump, but is there anything, Patrick or Keith, you want to add to wrap it up? Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I think it'd be fair to say you were pretty well trained, Jonathan. Would you say you had a pretty good training program before you went on the phones? Yeah. I don't think anything that you need to work on right now is technique. Like down the line, obviously, like you could always learn more technique and tune. But I think along the lines of what Scott was getting at is your main thing you need to improve is mindset. Anything that Amy's saying is correct, but you either won't do it or it won't work because of your beliefs. And before you even get into that shit, you need to think about what you're actually doing on a call, like how you view yourself and how you view your prospect. Because if that foundation's not there, nothing else is going to work, because your process is fucking tight, man. It's so tight. You got the entire intro scripted. You sound like you know it. You know where you're taking it. Like you know what your job is or what you think your job is. But I think that's the part you need to reconstruct, is you're not an advisor. Like you're a salesperson. You're there to sell them. And you think that if somebody pushes back on you, that you should kind of go with them and be polite, or like kind of do as they wish, because you're a consultant, you're there to serve, which a lot of people have that belief. I don't know, was that taught to you, or is that something that you feel like you hold as a human being?
I feel like that is my zone of genius, so I gravitate towards that, even if it's not what serves me best. And truthfully, one day I hope to get the hell out of a sales role so I can do more of the stuff that I'm better at.
Amen.
But yeah, for now, I do need to realize the difference between a consultant and a coach and a salesperson, because you're right. I pretty much coach and train them how to use the product, and hopefully I coach them and train them so well that they just really want to buy it, right? It's almost like my focus isn't to sell, my focus is to teach you how to use it. And if I do a good job teaching you how to use it, you'll be so excited about this plan of action we built together that you'll just have to buy the product in order to implement it. And it works well enough for me, right? Like I do fine, but especially I think now that I'm getting into, and honestly, I think that may even serve me well further on the sales cycle, but for these discovery calls, it does seem like it's the wrong tool for the job.
Yeah, and I'm curious, because like you said, your zone of genius is helping people and being helpful in general. But with the role you're in right now, what will help them if they have the right problems is them buying your product. And anything you can do to get them to that or away from you to someone that can help them is the most helpful thing you can do. So if you can change your mindset from what I'm doing right now is helping them to really help them, I need to get them to either out the door or into my product. And that's going to just serve you as best as possible till you can get out of sales and do what you really want to do.
Yeah. And like I used to be, well, probably still am, really codependent. Like I'm a people pleaser. So I came from a customer service background before I did sales, and like my job was just to like make everyone happy. And it was really a struggle for me initially on sales calls, because I had to really flip that mentality in saying, the only way I can help you is just you buy my product, or you buy this, solution. And for me, that was really difficult because I was the helper. I wanted to solve everyone's problems. I didn't want to ask them for anything. I wanted to be their friend. And I had to completely reframe how I approached sales, because people would take full advantage of that. Right. They would tell me all these things, and I would be like, oh, this is awesome, and everything's going great, and they're a cool friend. But when push came to shove, they wouldn't buy. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? And I think that's what it was, is that I would put too much time into being their friend, answering every single question they had, like the minute they, asked it, giving them, like bending over backwards, and they could sense the desperation in that. They could sense that I wasn't truly confident in what I was selling or saying, because I was just trying to do anything I could to make them happy. And that was sacrificing my job in the product and the company I was representing. So I feel ya. Like it's not a comfortable place to be, to ask someone to do anything, especially buy a product. I mean, I think we all struggle with that at times in sales. And because it's all up here. I mean, like Patrick was saying, your intro was great. You were kind of like mapping out how the call was going to go. And I think there is room for the coaching side of it, though. I totally see that you would be phenomenal at that. And especially your, like Scott was saying, like your tone of voice, and you're kind of monotone and even keeled, but that serves you really well in the later in the sales process, where you're trying to kind of instill a level of like calm, hey, you're making the right decision. And that coaching aspect can come into play, especially rolling into like maybe a proof of concept or something like that. But on the discovery call, that's when you got to push past like the desire to kind of please, and do the dirty sales work, get yourself a little dirty. I had to do the same thing. I had to completely change my psychological approach to sales to be successful.
I think I want to just re-add that the alternative is that they don't buy and that they go away, and that could be just as helpful. Like, it's not just to help them and they need to buy my product. It's like, I need to figure out what they need. And if that is to never talk to me again, and that's helpful for them, I'm totally happy with that. But everything I'm doing is towards one of those two doors. And I think that might help you, being that you are a helpful person. It's like, look, in my mind, I'm serving you. by getting you quickly to one of these exits.
So Jonathan, building on these things here and something else. So first of all, I echo, what Scott said, what the others have said. It takes some balls to go ahead and get in front of this with a bunch of strangers and said, okay, these guys apparently know what the hell they're talking about. But to that point, to the confidence, you can hear a certain confidence. You can hear a certain passion, a certain conviction in what we're saying. Think about how many times we've absolutely screwed it up. I can tell you thousands of times where the things you're talking about, dude, I should have been fired. I was embarrassed. I went for a walk like I suck. I mean, we've all screwed it up so many times, which is why there's also that commitment to making certain that we do it the right way. And at the same time, for somebody else, say, hey, look, I'm pretty slow and a bit of a dumbass sometimes. I've screwed it up like 5,000 times, Jonathan. If I can get you to screw it up 50 so you get good at it, that's good. So keep that in mind. And then building on what Patrick said, this person, and this is what Scott said too, this person clicked the link. They're a sales leader. They clicked the link. They know what happens. They know that Jonathan is going to call them and say, hey, I saw you click the link. Let's have a call. Nobody's going to wake up. Well, I might, but nobody's going to wake up and say, hey, let's go ahead. And so there's something that's happening or not happening in their world that made them go, okay, I'm about ready to put myself through this hell. Have one of these people call me. Your job, if you want to help, is like, I know there's a reason you called me. Nobody clicks on these things unless something's going on. These are the 2 or 3 reasons that somebody like yourself would click on it. Is that why we're here today? You're helping them feel comfortable to share why the hell they did the thing that no sales leader is going to theoretically do. That's your job, is to help them. And then to Patrick's part, advance the sale or close the file, right? If you just did it because you were bored or wanted to torture me, bye-bye. But there's got to be something. And if they don't want to share, now, first of all, if they're really, truly have no idea what all the numbers are about this stuff, then they're an idiot and you just can hang up on them. Okay. Or say goodbye if you're going to get in trouble for hanging up on people. I used to get in trouble for hanging up on people.
Yeah, I think
you go all key and peel on them.
I think Patrick had a really good point that I think takes a while in sales to realize, because I think we're all kind of wired to like sell. Everybody, you got to close everybody. But like as soon as you start to figure out that there are people that are not a good fit and you can just cut your losses, the better you are. Like these people are a perfect fit, these people are not. Your job, like you said, you're educating people. And I think, you can tell them right out of the gate, look, the point today in today's call is to educate you on how this product can help you. So it doesn't feel like a sales pitch. I'm going to tell you about the product, but to do that, I need to know more about, your pain points. So let's get right into the weeds. Like, what is this costing you? I don't know. Okay, this is what it costs for one of my other clients. Does that sound like you? No. Okay, how about this client? Like, okay, well, I don't know enough about you. Nice to meet you. Have a great day.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. Yeah. It's okay. You didn't like the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sign off.
You're not a customer.
Don't do that. That's not good. Right. Yeah, I think I agree. And I mean, Jonathan, really realistically, if someone like Francois started a call like that, I mean, how receptive would you be to talk to him? If you were like, okay, cool, like we're gonna get right into it.
Yeah.
Assuming you filled out a lead form. I mean, maybe I
right, yeah. Like a cold out mail might be a little different. Well, it is different, totally different.
Well, and just to piggyback on that, Amy, like, you want to build that credibility, right? So, you can say like of the 50 customers I've worked with or 20, they typically have these problems, right? And so again, like building that credibility where you're like, okay, here's the typical problems we see, and just keep hammering on that. And if they just can't, if none of that resonates, then in your mind, you can be like, okay, this isn't a great fit. You know what? You're now more educated on what our product does. It isn't a good fit for you. Once we know these things, let's spend some time. But you're kind of holding the reins and saying, look, man, we know we're solving these problems for these other customers. We know we can solve them for you. If you don't have those problems, we can't solve them. That's okay.
Yeah, actually, Jonathan, a really, really good line for you to use in that situation where you feel like there's a little bit of resistance as to, oh no, we don't have any of those problems. Because some people will front like that. I have a customer right now that did that with me. And they're massive. And I'm like, I know you guys have problems, right? I mean, come on, let's be real. We've been talking off and on for years. We've identified numerous opportunities that we could help you. But their main thing was they didn't think that we could do it any better than they're currently doing it. That was That was what they were falling on. And I pushed back and I said, listen, if I'm talking to you right now and I don't think that we can improve on your process, then there really is no point in us continuing to talk. I absolutely respect that. However, I know that we can improve your process. I know that we can solve a lot of the problems that we've discussed. And I know that we can take your already awesome process, because it is, you guys put a lot of work into it, put a lot of development and years of expertise to develop this amazing process. And we respect the hell out of that. What we're saying is we're going to come along and not only duplicate that process, but we're going to make it more effective. Okay, we're going to make you more efficient. We're going to enable you to do all those cool things that you're doing right now, faster, smarter, better. And if we can't do that, then we'll part friends, because there's no point in us continuing to talk if we can't improve on your current process. I mean, that would just be silly. And the guy was like, yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, why would you try to sell me something that does exactly what we do right now? I mean, that's stupid business. And if a vendor, we did that, I mean, it'd probably be unethical. Not that we wouldn't do it. You know, it's like, okay, if you guys make the decision to buy a product that already does what you guys are currently doing, you know, maybe you didn't vet properly, but it would be unethical. So approach it from that standpoint too, that like maybe they're already using a different video program or something like that, and they're pushing back on you. You can always one up that one and say, you know, look, it sounds like you guys have a solid process right now. I mean, what you're describing to me, I don't hear a lot of pain there. Maybe there's not many problems I can solve. I just know that most of the customers we work with have a solid process in place. And, you know, our job is to come in and make it even better, you know, because if we can't make it better, then there really is no point in doing business. So there's some of that kind of stuff that you can kind of sprinkle in there too, that works really well. Yeah. Who are your main competitors, by the way?
Probably Vidyard. He's the only one who seems to have a decent product. There's like a million different cheapo video tools out there that are crap, but it seems like Vidyard is the only one that actually has a good product. So I would say that.
Yeah. Yeah, you could probably Google search your competitors too, and like, you know, like pros and cons of Vidyard, pros and cons of this, and turn those into pains too. I do. It's like, oh, your current process might be, you know, doing X, Y, and Z, or causing you X, Y, and Z problems. And I just pull that straight from my competitors' mouths. Like, they fail at that. So that's a pain. If any of these customers are using that tool, they're experiencing those problems. So I know, just some more advice there. But I think you should come back, and like we should do another call and just run through, like, and maybe kind of work on like your value prop, or what pains you've decided to kind of lean in on. Because I think if you keep the same structure of, you know, that you worked on this call, I think it'll go a lot faster, a lot smoother.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you feel?
Oh, I'd love to do that, to make it a good use of your time. Before I did that, I want to make sure I had done that exercise you described of like, here's the pain points I solve, here's the hard costs, here's the soft costs, here's how I can ask questions and phrase that. Like, that's going to take me some time to build out. And I'm also just going to have to practice, you know, being a little bit more, I don't know, I guess we use assertive, right, on my demos, and just saying, hey, this is the process that works best for me. And I'm not going to be like pulled by the way you want this conversation to go. We're doing the conversation my way. And even having more of that attitude going into it of like 50% or 51% of me wants to sell you the product, and 49% of me wants to get the hell off this call as fast as possible. Right. And have that kind of attitude of like, all right, let's just figure out really quick, can I help you or not? And I don't care the outcome. Either way is fine with me. And really own that a bit more. Because I had a few calls recently where like I legitimately, from the moment they started talking, had suspicions that they really wouldn't be successful with the product. And I kind of tried to talk them out of it a little bit. Like, not hardcore talk them out of it, but try to lead the questions in such a way that they come to the conclusion on their own that it wasn't a good fit for them. And they pushed back on me, and they wouldn't accept it, and they fought me on it. And eventually I let them talk me into letting them buy it, you know? I can't reproduce that very often. Once in a while I get on those calls, but I can't necessarily reproduce that all the time, because most of the time I have this, you know, of course, understandable bent to really want them to sell it, and to want to hear good news, and to want to lead the conversation in good places. But I have noticed whenever I do get that attitude of, I'm impartial, let's figure this out, it goes a little bit better for me.
So Jonathan, what you just said, and the zone of genius, what Patrick had said too, if you're wired to help people and you're looking for the commitment to be able to say, Mr. or Mrs. Prospect, we need to do it my way. Otherwise, there's no chance I'm going to be able to help you. Like, if that's the way you need to approach it, I'm going to approach it be like, look, 70% of you MFers are not going to buy. I just need to know if you're the 70 so I can get to the 30 faster. That's how my mind is set. If yours is, I need to help people, I want to help people, we need to do it my way. Otherwise, I don't know if I can help you and I'm not okay with that. Completely different approach. And so you just said it yourself. And when you did it and when you cared enough to push back, they're like, no, Jonathan, that makes, right? Great negative reverse. You don't even know what a negative reverse is. So, so that's the stuff. And what Amy was saying, you have what it takes. It's just to find a way to tap into that gut. Because I'm going to say things on a call that would completely like blow your mind. And you're like, oh, I can never say that, but that's not you. So
right. Yeah.
That's where you find the sting. Like you and I could use the exact same system, but it would sound completely different. But Patrick would recognize, did an upfront contract. Ooh, good negative reverse. Like he would recognize the elements of it, but it would sound completely different from a delivery standpoint.
Yeah. And, kudos to you, Jonathan, for coming on and doing this. I mean, especially with Scott Leese on, he's got a vast following. So that was pretty cool. And I know like he was probably tough on you, but it's tough love. And it's one of those situations where, this shows that you're invested. And that you're invested. I mean, you want to do a good job and you want to sell. And this right here, I mean, your customers are going to see this and they're going to be like, dang, like that's, you did an awesome job. Like, but they also get to know your character too. And they see like, you love to help, you're a great coach. Like you don't want to push too hard. And, people also, they respect that too. I mean, that's endearing. And I feel like there are plenty of sales reps out there that are on the introverted side that are not very pushy and they still are highly successful because they put their customers in a zone where they feel safe and comfortable, and maybe they don't convert as many, yeses and move next steps as aggressively, but I guarantee you those people are going to come back. And maybe it's when they move, on to another company or something like that, but they're going to have a good experience with you and they're going to come back at some point in time because they remember you. So don't forget that either, because I think you came on here and what you did was awesome. I mean, like it's not easy. It's not easy, like pitching in front of random strangers and then opening yourself up to critique and advice. And so, more respect to you for that, because it's easy for us to sit on this side of it and to say, oh, I would do this, this, and this. It's much harder to be in your shoes where we're like, I'm struggling with this. This doesn't work. How do I fix this? I'm not comfortable with that. So I respect the hell out of you for coming on and going for it.
Yeah,
and I'm looking forward to the next call.
Hopefully you go into the long weekend feeling, like not defeated, but hey, here's a bunch of things I can improve, and hopefully we didn't like beat you down too much on a Friday.
I like this quite a bit. When I start getting discouraged is my number isn't where it's at, and I don't see what that way forward looks like. I don't see where the improvement happens. It feels like I've maxed out, where now you just opened up a new chamber for me. Oh, here's where the growth can happen. So now I suddenly have hope for the future that I can do better. So no, this has got me fired up. Although it will take a serious amount of time to dedicate to this, to figuring it out, to getting better. It's going to take time to do the Amy Quick exercise. I think that's going to be really good for me. And I'm also just going to have to be really disciplined in my demos, like shift my mindset, shift my demeanor, even at the cost of occasionally ruffling feathers, which just, I don't like that.
So I'll throw some, and I'm sure Patrick and Keith and Francois can throw some resources your way too, but I would encourage you, if you haven't watched Benjamin D, the UK's most hated sales rep, watch some of his videos. All right. Yeah. They, like, if you go on his LinkedIn and then his website, like he's got all these videos, watch those, and you don't need to replicate his style, but it will give you a sense of like, oh, okay. Cause he explains the psychological component of like why we feel the need to answer all the questions and why we feel the need to kind of comfort our customers. He does a really good job with that. I think that you'd appreciate it, because I did, because I was like, I'm so codependent and I want to love everyone and just make everyone happy. And then I watched those and I'm like, he's a boss. So the more I think like him, and like there's some others that like Josh
just
Vaughn,
Benjamin.
any of those.
No, just go to Benjamin. He's literally
Benjamin.
he's the only person you need. Like, he also is the only person that makes video content like that, where he does shit live. Like, it's not
Yeah.
theory. He's doing it.
He
And
cold
that
calls
really
people
helped me.
live. Like,
Yeah.
and they record it, and they record the other side of the conversation too. And you're like, oh, dang, like that's
It's
real
amazing.
good. Yeah. So, I don't know. Would it,
Yeah, I
I'm
built
like
my
the
entire
asshat
sales
CEO
process
who called you
off
out
of him.
on, who is that? What CEO called someone out on LinkedIn? Or you can't say their name. Never
Well, yeah,
mind.
there's-
We're recording. I'm like, Keith's like over here talking trash, and I'm about to throw their
Keith,
name on
put in the
blast.
chat, Keith. Put in the
Anyway.
chat.
Yeah, so check him out, and I'll throw some other resources your way that I think will just kind of help you, like motivate you to like pump you up a little bit for calls, because I have to do the same crap. I mean, I have to find motivation as well.
Cool. Yeah, I just googled Benjamin D. So
Yeah,
Okay, guys.
freaking hilarious.
I know it's later on the East Coast, so I think we'll wrap her up. But amazing that you guys all made time for this. Have a great Memorial Day weekend too. Long weekend.
Yes.
yes, thanks so much, guys. Appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Bye.
Cheers, guys.
Bye, guys.
Laters.